Hello, everyone, and welcome again to another Teacher Joseph podcast. Today's phrase is to have no qualms. And if you have no qualms about doing something, it means you're not worried that it may be wrong in some way. You have no hesitations, apprehensions, uneasiness, or moral difficulty with the action. For example, if you recommend a certain way of doing something, you can say, I have no qualms with this. It means I don't have any problems with it. I don't have any issues with that. Now, we only ever use this in the negative. Okay, you can say, I have qualms with something. Maybe in Old English that was the case, but we don't use that now. Let's look at some examples. So the doctor is low on resources and he has to decide which patients he's going to treat. Is it going to be the one with cancer first, or maybe the one with the flu? The doctor might say, I have no qualms about my decision. And in the past tense, he can say, I had no qualms. Likewise, a business owner who's going to fire his employees during a tough economic time, he might say, I have no qualms about downsizing the company. In the past, I had no qualms, or maybe even I will have no qualms in the future. Imagine that there's a breakup between two of your friends. Maybe a relationship coming to an end. You might hear one of them saying, I have no qualms about this, no qualms about this coming to an end. Another example, someone who jumps out of aeroplanes and hopes his parachute will open in midair. He might say, I have no qualms about risking my life. And also with speaking your mind, if you're quite a direct person, you can say, I have no qualms about telling people how I feel. Now, this is very, very common, and I use this a lot. I have no qualms about doing particular things, telling people what I think of them. I have no qualms. It doesn't mean being insensitive. It just indicates a lack of hesitation, getting things done. And that's really, really important, especially in a culture like here, where everyone kind of dances around each other, being very polite. Sometimes you just have to say things in order for things to change. So, yeah, to have no qualms about doing something means to do something without a problem or hesitation. Very common, even in business English. Now, as you know, here in the UK, the UK is made up of 4 different nations: Scotland, England, Ireland, and Wales. It's very confusing sometimes because politically now they're completely separate with their own governments. And for example, England had elections at the weekend, but that was the only place there were elections for their local governments. And Scotland just lost its first minister. That's what we call the Scottish president or prime minister, the first minister. So he quit. There was some big scandal over it. I want to tell you more about that in a moment. But first of all, just to touch on the English elections. So, as you know, each of these countries has its own political system, and they can become really confusing. So, England just had theirs, um, and also, I think once every 5 years, there's usually a national election to vote for the central government as well. Okay, so that gives you some background. But what I want to tell you is about um, the Scottish First Minister. So the one we had until last week, he was a British-born Indian guy called Hamza Yousaf. And there was some kind of scandal involving his coalition government. So he quit, and they had no qualms about someone immediately coming in and replacing him. And the new First Minister in Scotland, his name is John Swinney, and you know they always come in, don't they, with some big thing, some really big idea about what they're going to do or what they're going to change. So the headline that accompanies John Swinney's appointment, he has declared his determination to eradicate child poverty in Scotland. Now, I'm not sure about you, but I get really tired of these kind of statements that they make coming in. I mean, it's more like a Miss World competition. Do you remember Miss World? If you're in the Latin world, it was called Miss Mundo, and it was all about how beautiful the woman looked. And she always gave a speech about how she was going to become a vet and help little children and make the world a better place. That's exactly what this sounds like. Um, John Swinney has declared his determination to eradicate child poverty in Scotland once he is in his place as First Minister. He used his first appearance as the new leader of the Scottish Government yesterday to announce helping poor families, and he says this would be his principal policy interest. Speaking in Glasgow shortly after his party confirmed he was the only candidate to replace Hamza Yousaf, John Swinney branded child poverty a curse. Yeah, well. Anyway, I'm more interested in what Miss World is doing. Apparently, these beauty contests, these beauty pageants, as I was mentioning a moment ago, Miss World, Miss UK, Miss America, they're still very popular in some parts of the world. But for those of you who don't know the Miss World competition, this was a very long-running competition where women would appear wearing swimsuits, and they would be judged by how beautiful they were. Then they would be crowned, and they would give great speeches about how they want to be vets and help little animals and poor people in the world. And they had no real power. I mean, it was only a beauty competition, but still very popular in Latin America and also the Philippines. They love Miss World because these countries, of course, appreciate beauty much more than Western countries do. Some people here uh, really worked tirelessly to eradicate the Miss World competition from our TV. They felt it was sexist, it didn't treat women fairly, to see women portrayed on TV only because of their beauty was considered excellent at the time, but looking back, it's these days it would be considered completely out of date. You can still find them on YouTube and in our old TV archives. I'm not sure if Britain still participate in it, but we certainly don't show it on mainstream TV anymore, that's for sure. So getting back to this story that I was telling you about a moment ago, John Swinney is going to be the new Scottish First Minister. So he's the only candidate. So that means he's already got the job and he'll be officially appointed later this week. He's 60 years old and he's the third leader in 14 months because there was a woman and then she left rather suddenly. Then there was this British-born Indian guy, Hamza Yusuf, and now the 60-year-old John Swinney. He made his big speech in Glasgow about eradicating child poverty. That's his big thing. And then he went on to different places to continue his speeches. He's saying in the newspapers today that he's physically and mentally rested and ready for what lies ahead. He's ruled out any cooperation with coalition parties, and he says he wants to work with all members of parliament to chart the future of Scotland. Yeah, when you chart, when it's used in this way, it means when you decide to take something in a particular direction, you chart a course. It comes from our days of shipping, because when you get on a boat, they chart a course, how to get you from one place to another. It might be the same in aviation. I think you chart courses in aviation as well. So he wants to chart the future of Scotland and to do that in a collaborative and cooperative way. Yeah, that means that you'll need to work with the central government to try to push this issue of independence, which is one of the reasons why his government has been elected. So I don't know what the central government are going to say about this. A little bit of controversy. Many people don't like him, but to be honest, I don't know. Like most politicians now, they speak a lot, but they don't really force change because they're too afraid of upsetting anybody. So it's a little bit strange. Yeah, this whole child poverty thing is a bit odd. I mean, you wouldn't think anybody here in the UK suffers poverty, but they do. There's a lot of poverty. The moment you step outside London, there isn't much money anywhere else going north, and this is part of the problem. So that's one big issue he'll need to deal with. So it looks like they have no qualms in accepting him in and appointing him as the new leader. I don't know what the ceremony is for bringing in new ministers. I should know. I mean, they've had enough of them. That's 3 in 14 months. I know that the ceremony takes place within the Scottish court system. He gets, the term is sworn in. That's just an official term that they use. But in the central government, you have to meet the king and you have to become quite friendly with the king because, after all, it's the king's government. But for the four nations, I'm not sure if it's the same. I would imagine that you'll be meeting the king anyway, but I don't know if that's part of his appointment if he has to do that. I don't remember anybody else doing that for any of the four nations except England and the central government. So, yeah, it'll be interesting. But anyway, well, that's it from me. I hope you've enjoyed this. Let's talk soon. See you. Bye.